Frid och shalom älskade vänner. Välkommen till den 8/11 och igår var vi och spelade in ett program med en världsmästare i havskappsegling vid namn Lennart Jansson. Han är väldigt känd som sagt var. Och under videon här så ligger det en länk till den här inspelningen som vi gjorde med honom. Livsberättelse med Lennart Jansson. Det är aldrig för sent, säger han. Han var ju 60 när han kom till tro och fick en förvandling i Herren. Så vi lägger länken under videon här då. Ska vi ta och börja med en psalm. Psalm 56 och 2. Det är skrivet av David, men det gäller ju både oss och judarna. Var mig nådig, Herre, Gud, ty människor vill ta mitt liv. Stridslystet angriper de mig hela tiden. Ständigt står mina förföljare efter mitt liv. De är många som i högmod strider mot mig. När fruktan kommer över mig så förtröstar jag på dig. Med Guds hjälp ska jag prisa hans ord. På Gud förtröstar jag och fruktar inte. Vad kan det som är kött göra mig? Ständigt förvränger de mina ord. Alla deras tankar går ut på att skada mig. Och det kan man verkligen säga om de här lögnerna som kommer ut av fejkfoto, AI-teknik använder man och alla möjliga konstiga historier om Israel och lögner. Och vers 7. De gaddar sig samman, ja hela världen gör det. De lägger försåt, listiga anslag alltså. De vaktar på mina steg. De står efter mitt liv. Skulle de räddas i sin ondska? Nej, slå ner folken i din vrede, Gud. Vi ser en tid närma oss som Bibeln också talar om Guds vrede. Och då är det ju väldigt bra att stå på Guds sida, eller hur? Och det här med Israel förstår ni, och Guds folk. Det tror vi kommer att ha en avgörande betydelse för hur Gud kommer att döma oss. För det visar sig ju nämligen då vad vi egentligen har i våra hjärtan. Ja, det har ju hänt väldigt mycket på krigsfronten här och det händer mycket i världen då i skuggan av det här kriget som pågår nere i Gaza. Emmanuel Macron förbereder sig för att leda Paris Peace Forum 2023. Där alla ögon kommer att riktas på då vad man gör just med Israel och palestinierna när kriget här i Gaza rasar vidare. Idén till Paris Peace Forum initierades 2017 av Frankrikes president Emmanuel Macron under hans tal vid ambassadörskonferensen där han efterlyste behovet av att vidta konkreta åtgärder för att stärka multilateralismen och bevara freden. Wow, det är ganska ambitiöst för en helt ny president att ta sig an det här då. Särskilt en som hade 0 tidigare politisk erfarenhet. Inte bara det, utan 2017 var året då Macron öppet sa att hans önskan var att härska över Frankrike som guden Jupiter. Ja, då får han ju börja sopa framför sin egen dörr först då, med all den antisemitism som blossar upp. Just i Paris då. Vi ska se hur Macron kommer att behandla det här då. Macrons fredsforum i Paris har också ett annat statligt mål och det låter precis som Klaus Schwab när han talar om den stora återställningen eller Great Reset som är en annan bild av Agenda 2030. Kanske beror det på att Emmanuel Macron var en av Schwabs lärjungar och handplockad och tillsattes i makten genom det här programmet. Paris Peace Forum 2023 kommer alltså att hållas den 10-11 november och samla representanter från stater, internationella organisationer, företag och utvecklingsbanker till stiftelser och icke-statliga organisationer från flera håll i världen. Det kommer alltså att ledas av denne president Emmanuel Macron. Och vi kommer att visa en trailer här då från det här till det här Peace Forum 2023 i Paris. Sen kommer det en annan video då där vi rapporterar om att Ryssland har dragit sig ur alla militär- och kärnvapenavtal. Och läget nu liknar det vi har sett under kalla krigets dagar. Är inte detta intressant? Det står uttryckligen i Hesekiel 38-39 att han ska dra sig tillbaka och upprusta sin stora armé. Är det inte konstigt det här som sker nu? Nej, inte när vi har en Gud som vet allt redan på förhand och beskriver det i en bok. Den här profetian är över 2600 år och den är så detaljerad, verklig och nästan skrämmande att Gud vet allt. Men det vet han. Och så får vi reda på att Tyskland skickar in massor av soldater i Litauen för att bevaka den stora ryska uppladdningen av militär styrka i området. Och så kommer då vår video som vanligt här med kartor och detaljerad information om nattens strider där Israel har nått stora framgångar både i norr och på Gazaremsan. Men även en del förluster givetvis, det kommer vi ju inte undan. Men det har sett väldigt bra ut från Israels sida som är väldigt avvaktande och vill skydda sina soldater. Och man strider smart, man strider sakta men detaljerat och precis. Man använder både granater här och sen använder man tanks och sen använder man då flyget framför allt. Och man går fram sakta men säkert och spar mycket soldatliv med detta givetvis. Vi ser också något glädjande och det är att nu börjar Gazabor till och med tala emot hur missnöjda man är med Hamas. Så det är inte alla som håller på Hamas, men det visste vi ju redan då. Vi kan se stora skaror vandra söderut med vita flaggor på en video också. Det kommer vi inte visa här då, men vi har sett det på en video här så. Ja, kära vänner, vi hörs mer under dagen då. Men vi lägger ut den här videon med Lennart Jansson som vi spelade in igår här under den här videon då. Gud välsignar alla, så hörs vi på Telegram och på vår hemsida under dagen. Det går verkligen framåt här mot Herrens dag, vänner. Käre Jesus, läs Hesekiel 38 och Hesekiel 39. Gud välsigna er. Amen.
In the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming out of Russia and NATO. So Russia and NATO have both formally withdrawn from the Conventional Forces Europe Treaty today. And this treaty set a limit on conventional forces that could be deployed and also a limit to the total number of certain types of heavy equipment that Russia and NATO could have. So those limits were 20,000 tanks, 20,000 artillery pieces, 30,000 armored combat vehicles, 6,800 combat aircraft, and 2,000 attack helicopters. So basically, neither side could have more than that. And this was passed in 1990 during the fall of the Soviet Union, and the purpose of the treaty was to prevent basically an all-out war in Europe. And the treaty also set limits on the number of active units. So out of, let's say, the 20,000 tanks that either Russia or NATO could have, or actually it was the USSR back then, out of that 20,000, they could only have 16,500 tanks deployed as part of active duty. And out of the 20,000 artillery pieces, only 17,000 could be deployed on the front lines. And out of the 30,000 armored combat vehicles, only 27,300 could be actually deployed on the front lines. Okay, so Russia was the first one to pull out of this treaty. They did so earlier this morning, and then NATO responded by doing the same thing. And we do know that over the last few weeks, Russia has been moving a lot of military transport planes into Kaliningrad, and Kaliningrad is a small piece of Russia that's stuck between Lithuania and Poland. And just like 3 days ago, there were 5 of these Russian transport planes, military transport planes, going to Kaliningrad in a single day. We had another one just today, okay, go to Kaliningrad. So Russia's definitely moving equipment into Kaliningrad. They also reorganized their Western military district earlier this year, and they split it up into smaller districts, which many analysts think is a move to prepare for some kind of conflict in Eastern Europe and the Baltics and possibly Finland. So this is very, very concerning, guys. And this comes just a week after Putin signed a bill to pull out of the nuclear test ban treaty, which would allow Russia to do atmospheric and underwater nuclear weapons tests. And Putin also pulled out of the New START treaty earlier this year, which was created by Obama in 2008. And the New START treaty limited the number of warheads that the U.S. and Russia could have deployed to 1,500. And it also limited the number of missiles and bombers. And so Putin pulled out of that earlier this year. And then also in 2019, Trump pulled out of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, which Putin responded by doing the same thing shortly after. So, guys, we're basically going back in time. We're going back to the height of the Cold War now. Okay, the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty is gone. The New START Treaty is gone. The Nuclear Test Ban Treaty is gone. The Conventional Forces Europe Treaty is gone. All right, so basically, all of the major arms control treaties between Russia and NATO have evaporated. Okay, so this is very concerning, guys. Okay, and we've seen both sides posturing. Okay, we saw the U.S. Moving B-2 stealth bombers to Iceland. We've had the U.S. flying B-52s right to the border of Russia near Estonia earlier this year. And Russia has been testing a lot of missiles. They just recently tested one of their submarine launched ballistic missiles. The U.S. just recently tested an ICBM, and the U.S. tested a Minuteman III 2 months ago out of Vandenberg Air Force Base in California with 3 dummy warheads. Normally, these Minuteman III missiles are only supposed to have 1, but this test was with 3, which is evidence that the U.S. is either thinking about or in the process of rearming all of our Minuteman III missiles with 3 warheads rather than just 1. And that's because Putin pulled out of the New START treaty, which forced us to remove 2 warheads from each of our 400 Minuteman III ICBMs. And you can thank Obama for that. That was the stupidest treaty ever. And Putin actually did us a favor by pulling out of it, because now we can rearm all of our Minuteman III ICBMs, and we can also rearm our Ohio class subs and add back 4 extra Trident missiles to each of our 14 Ohio class subs that have the Trident missiles. So Putin actually did us a favor, even though he probably didn't think he was going to do that. And just want to remind you guys that yesterday we had 7 nuclear war command and control planes in the air here in the U.S. Okay, these planes are responsible for communicating with our nuclear forces. 7 of them in one day is unprecedented, to say the least. I've been following these planes for the last 3 years, and even throughout the entire Ukraine war, I've never seen 7 nuclear war command and control planes in the air in a single day. Okay, normally it would be 1, maybe 2, occasionally 3, but 7 in one day is just insane, guys. Okay. We also had a B-1 nuclear bomber fly over Saudi Arabia yesterday, and CENTCOM announced that a nuclear armed sub arrived in the Middle East. Okay, so tensions are soaring, guys. Okay, we are on the verge of World War III and nuclear war. It could happen any day. All right, so make sure you're prepared. You need to make sure you have a nuclear war survival plan. You need to make sure you have a bug out bag. These things are very, very important. Okay, anything can happen. We just don't know when, but it's coming. Okay, and I have this article I want to read to you coming from a German news source saying that Germany is going to be bringing in heavy brigades into Lithuania now, apparently 2 battalions. So the Bundeswehr wants to permanently station a heavy combat brigade in Lithuania to relocate 2 existing combat battalions from Germany to the Baltic country as a third combat battalion. NATO's existing multinational battle group is to be integrated into the brigade that Germany has promised to protect NATO's eastern flank. Defense Minister Boris Pistorius announced on Monday the decision to permanently station the 203rd Panzer Battalion from Augustdorf and the 102nd Panzer Grenadier Battalion from Observietach as the core of the new brigade in Lithuania. According to the minister, the association, called Panzer Brigade 42, will have around 4,800 soldiers and will be supplemented by 200 civilian employees from Germany. So this is huge news, guys. Okay, huge. All right. Russia pulling out of the Conventional Forces Treaty today, NATO pulling out, and yesterday, Germany announcing they're going to be reinforcing Lithuania. Guys, something's brewing in the Baltics. Something is brewing in Eastern Europe. I'm telling you, all these Russian military transport planes going to Kaliningrad, it's not for nothing. Okay, something is building up over there, and we've had a lot of high priority reconnaissance planes patrolling the Baltics the last 3 weeks or so. We've had several combat Sentinel planes flying through the Baltics and around Kaliningrad, and the U.S. Air Force only has 2 combat Sentinel planes, and those planes provide intelligence directly to the president and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And they've been flying around Kaliningrad like every second day for the last 3 weeks. Okay. We also had Forte 11 and RQ-4 Global Hawk patrol Poland for the first time a few days ago. All right. So something is brewing over there, and it's very possible that when things kick off in the Middle East, and things get crazy in the Middle East, which could happen any day, Russia is going to move in with their forces into the Baltics or potentially attack Poland, potentially attack Finland. So things are escalating, but Germany is now moving almost 5,000 soldiers and 2 Panzer battalions into Lithuania. These are heavy combat battalions, heavy combat brigade. Okay. So things are really getting serious, guys.
Launched its biggest offensive since the beginning of the war. All the terrorist organizations have risen up. Israeli F-35s entered the center of Lebanon. Jets started flying over Beirut. Simultaneously, a counterattack by terrorist organizations began in the coastal strip. Israeli forces are on the offensive, and the situation is more critical than ever. The war has officially begun at every point in the south and west. Without wasting time, let's fast forward to the most critical day of the war. First, for about 10 days, fighting and advances had been taking place along the coastal line of the Gaza Strip. Israeli forces surrounded the coastline from the north and south, leaving only 3 kilometers of the coastline. During this period, the Hamas terrorist organization launched counterattacks and resistance along the line. Today, however, the small operations ended and the Israeli army officially started the big operation with all its troops. With the evening hours, it was observed that Israeli tanks took sudden action. Israeli tanks, which were deployed on the 2 points you see on the map in the past days, started to attack very suddenly. On the Al-Rashid highway, Israeli tanks were observed moving northward. In the meantime, the infantry started to advance on 2 lines, parallel to the road where the tanks were advancing. 2. Israeli forces in the northern part of the coastal strip moved simultaneously to advance southward. The terrorist organizations expected a major attack from the Israeli-controlled northern front, but the first attack came from the south. For this reason, Merkava tanks advanced in a straight line along the coastal line without being attacked, and an area of 1 kilometer came under Israeli control. In the meantime, the infantry, advancing on a parallel road, confronted the Hamas terrorist organization at the border of the Jamal Abdel Nasser Ring Road. It was noticed that the terrorist organizations were deployed in the area to make a welcome at the entrance to the highway. However, within a very short period of time, fierce clashes broke out. As the clashes intensified, tanks were mobilized on the parallel road. The rapid advance of the tanks led to the cornering of a group of 30 militants in the Al Khartoum area. When the infantry on the coastal strip returned to the parallel road and attacked, the group of 30 militants was eliminated in a single point. However, I clearly observed a large number of terrorists launching a counterattack. If the Israeli forces achieve their objective on the coastal strip, the army will return abruptly to the eastern line. On the other hand, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Hamas organization expected the Israeli army to attack from the north. Therefore, the organization shifted most of its forces to the north. As the Israeli forces advanced from the southern line, the Hamas organization launched an attack on the northern line. The first attack took place on Al-Mashtal Street, which is under Israeli control. As the terror groups attacked, Israeli forces quickly launched a counterattack. Israeli forces sent 2 units to counterattack from the east of the first attack point you can see on the map. However, Israeli forces advancing from the eastern line started to organize a counterattack. According to the first statement made, the Israeli forces stated that the clashes in the region have come to a standstill, but a small progress has been made. At the same time, it was reported that clashes broke out around Sheit as Israeli forces infiltrated into the interior of Gaza. Currently, around the Sheit camp, the fiercest fighting of the operation is taking place. Neither side has been able to make any progress, but as a result of the air and tank attacks, many members of the terrorist organization have been killed. 2 tanks of the Israeli forces were attacked in the vicinity of Sheit camp. Due to the damage to the tanks, they were towed to a safe zone and later moved to Israeli territory to be repaired. During this process, 1 Merkava tank and 1 bulldozer used to destroy the tunnels were destroyed by the Al-Qassam Brigade during a sudden entry into the city. The Al-Qassam Brigade hid in a high-rise building on the street and launched an attack with anti-tank missiles from inside the building. In the process, warplanes destroyed the high-rise building where the terrorist group was hiding. It was reported that 20 Hamas members were eliminated as a result of the attack. In the process, 3 tanks and 1 bulldozer of the Israeli army were taken out of service, and at least 100 Hamas members were eliminated. Therefore, there could be a major rupture in the region in a short period of time. Because the Israeli forces have made a very rapid advance from the southern line without encountering any obstacles. The terror groups are pinned down on the point you see on the map. The only aid point is the center of Gaza, which is in the east of the region, but the terrorist organization stuck in the middle will be attacked from many different points, both from the north and the south. The coastal strip will probably be completely under control within a day. As you can see, the advance is not over a narrow area. Therefore, if the 2 points under Israeli control are combined, a massive all-out attack on the center of Gaza will begin. Hamas has deployed all its forces in the coastal strip and has lost a lot of fighters. If there is a major breakthrough at this point, we will clearly see a very rapid advance of Israeli forces. Simultaneously, the third attack started on the eastern line of the northern front. Terrorist organizations formed many fronts and started to attack from different points. But on the northern front, Hamas suffered a major defeat. The 7th Armored Brigade of the Israeli forces captured the large terrorist camp at the point where Hamas was attacking at night. The Special Forces soldiers made progress after intense fighting, and most of the terrorist group was forced to retreat. However, 10 senior Hamas officials were observed trapped inside and around the camp. In this process, the infantry did not advance on land to avoid taking risks and followed air support to destroy the camp where the terrorists were located. Exactly 7 minutes later, warplanes suddenly struck the camp. 10 senior Hamas officials and 14 members of the terrorist organization were eliminated. Israeli forces were seen advancing on Al-Nasser Street. On the other hand, let's move on to the most important news of the day. Israeli F-35s moved suddenly and entered the capital of Lebanon. Terrorist organization went on the offensive as the major operation of the Israeli forces began. Hundreds of rockets were fired from the Golan. All of the attacks were intercepted by the Iron Dome air defense systems. In the meantime, Israeli warplanes launched airstrikes on all Hezbollah targets along the border. While the warplanes targeted the camps for about 4 hours, Israeli F-35 fighter jets unexpectedly entered Lebanon. Shortly after, the F-35Es were observed flying over Beirut. While the warplanes are still flying over the area, in case Hezbollah launches a counterattack, a massive airstrike could begin. Israeli warplanes loaded with ammunition continue to fly over Beirut and Hezbollah positions. With the start of the Gaza operation, we see that measures are being taken against Hezbollah in great detail. In a short time, the fate of the borderline will be decided. The siege of Gaza will be completed shortly. If the operation is successful, the center of Gaza will be entered. The terrorist organizations are trying to resist with all their might, but I can say that the Israeli army is advancing with a very correct strategy. The terrorist organizations have great problems launching counterattacks with guerrilla tactics because the Israeli forces are attacking without putting their soldiers at risk. As I mentioned, at some point the soldiers call for air support from drones and fighter jets in case the battle gets bogged down. Once the area has been attacked from the air, the infantry starts to advance. The big break will happen in a very short time. Here we are at the end of another video. We will continue to